looks like I'm ready to go here. A little bit later tonight, but uh, better late than never. I gotta do one every night this week if I need to get all these things done. So, like I said, we're still in 2005, and today we are taking a trip from July of 2005, where I went up to Syracuse. So that was in July of 2005. I was part of a scholarship program that came with a job placement function. And I'd actually already placed with a job. I was just waiting to start. But it turns out I still qualified to go to the one of the annual job fairs that they held for these. This is like a conference slash job fair. Part of the came out of the program, and and despite the fact that I already had a job, things can always fall through. So I decided to go, and instead of flying up to Syracuse, I asked if they could send me via Amtrak, and indeed they could. So, why not? And I had been, I think, on this route before, the water level route through New York Central, but not really in the digital camera era. So this was going to give me a nice method to go and get some of the photos there. So first off, we're just most of these are going to be on the way up. It's pretty much side window shots, unfortunately, and I wasn't for whatever reason. I'm not sure if I just wasn't trying or what Amtrak had on the back those days, but it's mostly side window. Although on my return trip, at some point I did manage to get into the back. I do believe that this was also the nadir of Amtrak ridership, and there was a lot of closed cars, which was usually responsible for blocking reasonable views. But then again, when you only have 90-something photos, you can't really do the surveys that I do today, where you go and you take 1,000 photos. So here I am. Just this is HM Tower in Croton. Now I'd had some issues earlier in the summer, running short of photo space, so I didn't take any photos. Along the NEC where I had an ample opportunity to. So I sort of held my breath for the getting something interesting. And HM Tower is definitely one of those. It was actually rebuilt by Metro North into some sort of crew or yard space. But your typical New York Central GRS plant, which were very long because of the nature of the interlocking machines. Very square except for the bay windows. Now I've gone ahead of these times and gotten all the everything queued up so I can get the names. Prior to 2004, you still saw a variety of Metro North was still using its M1A cars. They had a few of those left that they kept for, I guess, load or whatever. So you weren't all, I'm not sure what that is, if that's an M3 or not, but it wasn't all M7s on Metro North at the time. Although it was, just like today, it was clearly the majority. And of course there's a 4082. Unlike the Long Island Railroad, Metro North, a number of railroads don't put the numbers on the front of the car, and I'm just always puzzled by that. Isn't it good to see the number of the car? There's some railroads out there that splatter the number in very prominent locations, especially in the front, and it's quite irritating trying to get numbers for some of these. Because they just don't exist. You can't see them from most angles. Fortunately, Long Island Railroad, which is known for its secrecy, surprisingly does not participate in this practice. But Metro North is one that does. Here you have CD Tower, another preserved tower on Metro North. This is used by the CNS department as a some sort of hangout. It's hard for me to get. I never, just due to the nature of, pulling out of there. Ugh. Yeah, I tried to fix that one with some filters, but you can't really fix the blur. A soft photo. But I can at least increase the resolution a little bit. Here we have the Amtrak's. I guess at some point I noticed that I could go out to the back of this car. Got to find where I have for the infrastructure photos queued up. Huh. Thought I had these ready to go. Here we go. The Rhinecliff platform. Rhinecliff is notable for the use of the little orange yellow stools, which are normally carried in the am fleets, to provide that last little step down to the platform. But at some point in Rhinecliff, they appropriated many of them as sort of a poor man's mid-level platform. I think that the grade has been raised here by about 2 feet. I'm sure that back in the day that platform was not flush like we see it now. One thing that's definitely changed in a lot of railroads since the mid-2000s, Amtrak specifically, as more money's been made available, the sort of the weed situation, although very pretty in photos like this, has been brought under control. I won't say, I guess it's under control, although there's not much to control. I think I'm sure it undermines some stability in the track. Here we have CP89. I've since visited this interlocking. This was, as you can tell by the some of the artifacts at Rhinecliff. I might pull that back open real quick. Rhinecliff this was a 4-track segment of the water level route. The passenger line on the east side of the Hudson variated from 2 to 4 tracks. Definitely, like around Bear Mountain and stuff, we have the tunnels. It was clearly 2. Here, it was 4. I don't have. I'm a PRR person, so I don't have the track diagrams. And the New York Central was very aggressive in rationalizing its plant as opposed to the PRR, and especially using CTC and other technology to reduce the number of tracks that they needed. But you can, again, this was a 4-track signal bridge at one point before being converted, and kept on in the Conrail era. Here's an interlocking I've yet to be able to visit, mainly because of its location, although I'm hoping to get up there at some point soon. Although I might have to wait until next fall to do so. This is, what is it, CP94? I'll have to look it up. This is notable for having a searchlight bracket mast for westbound movements. You can sort of see it. It's sort of there in the background. You can just see it past that bridge, and that bridge is one reason why it's very hard to get photos of it. But I hope to get out there at some point before it gets re-signaled like so much stuff is these days. Where are we? Yeah, it is CP94. Yeah, dispatchers on the Hudson Line like to keep things fleeted, so when the signals are lit, at least you can see that they're usually displaying something. They're usually displaying clear or something like that. These are a little grainy. I might have been shooting them through 2 windows. I'm not sure. Since this was a through train, they didn't have the typical business class on the rear, which they do to these, which they do to this day. Now I know this. This is CP 103. I have actually also visited this interlocking and documented it. Not much has changed again since the Conrail era. A lot of the signaling went, I think, in the late 70s, actually. It was definitely before, 1986 or whatever, as the right-hand placement rule is still in effect for signals. And like I've said before, the right-hand placement rule is what did more to kill signaling, probably even than PTC in this country. Once you didn't need to put signals always on the right, then a lot of cantilevers went, especially for ABS, cantilevers went away, these sort of middle masts went away, gantries went away. Everything, you just put something on the outside of the track with back-to-front signals. Cheap, easy. Here we have a 700 series P42DM. Number looks like 705. Here, heading south at Hudson. And here we are at Hudson's CP 114. Again, this is one that I have some photos of from the train, but nothing beyond that. Taking a crossover here, probably due to some track work. I'm just going to be reusing the names to overwrite the older files. I've maintained the naming convention actually from this trip, so that's one reason I don't need to deal with it. So we've done our first little bit here. We got some people here. Remember, ask some questions if you have any. I'll be checking back in to do stuff. So. Moving on to our next set. I'm going to have a whole bunch of Albany pictures here in a second. This is before, of course, Amtrak leased the line. CSX had taken over it, and Amtrak maintained it north of CP 125, but the relationship was always fraught. Amtrak by far ran the majority of the service, and CSX was... sort of told to, just sort of set, all they could do was basically the only thing that could happen was getting into disputes. I don't know why CP 115 wound up with these large target searchlights. Possibly because of sun conditions. You never know. Also note the CSX temporary speed restriction boards right there. After Amtrak took over, Amtrak is still one of the few NORAC railroads left. After Amtrak took over, a lot of the CPs have the CSX boards still there. I know they're not used because they're not NORAC compliant. So, just FYI, if you need some CSX boards, I know so there's a whole bunch laying out there, and they're not going to be missed. Here we have a CSX truck, a high rail. Look, oh there's your reason for the crossover. It looks like you got a track patrol ready to go around and do their thing. I have no idea where I would have put this guy. Here we go. It looks pretty good, although I might need to straighten this out a little bit. No, it's good. He's done. And here we have the Hudson platform. Again, the little stools are out, although not as many as at Rhinecliff. And Rhinecliff, they've only gotten, and in this they only have more of them now. Hudson is a holdout platform. I'm not sure if this had 4 tracks or not. Probably, I don't know. But today it's again a holdout platform. I'm assuming that they have. I need to read the special instructions to see if they have any instructions about having to enter the platform or get dispatcher protection. Here at CP1 124, the reason for the gantry is because there used to be a sort of a set-out track or a team track in that position there, and it would come in, and then you have the rest of your crossover. That was eliminated at some point. I have a 1980s cab ride video that shows that this used to be three signals here at this signal gantry. I'm going to crop it out, but there's another CSX approach speed restriction sign. I'm sorry, the solid yellows are approach just approach stop board. So here we have the famous, the end of CSX maintenance, and this is where the 110 mile an hour segment starts. And the reason is this is where CSX off CSX freight enters the line. So where CSX didn't have any freight getting on the line to beat up the track, Amtrak would maintain it to 110. The notable thing here is the very beefy New York Central vintage cantilever mast right there. And the auto on track number 1 displaying an approach for the home signal at CP124. I'd love to get out to this one, but it is not in a very accessible location, but I will definitely be something I can look into. Yeah, with my old camera, it was just sort of, line up the CPs and get one picture at each. Here's one of our, again, this is in the 110 mile an hour zone with a grade crossing with very minimal protection. I love I always show these sorts of crossings to the Europeans, and they always flip their nut, like, oh, great cross. It's like, yeah, you just don't, you put a bar, put a cow catcher on your train, and, eventually through attrition, the problem will solve itself. Here's some another interesting thing. This is just south of Albany. We have part of the freight track and this These holdovers, I think these are still there. Holdovers from the Rule 251 era, 4 tracks, 2 brackets. Not sure if I filed this under signaling or infrastructure. I guess infrastructure. Another thing about the going above CP 125. At some point in my old Penn Central diagrams, this was single tracked between 120 CP 124 or whatever that was called in the late New York Central era. The Central was really trying to dump its passenger, and they were screwing around with what would have become Amtrak service. And at some point, they single tracked the line between 124 and Albany, just as they lifted the old Post Road branch, and actually had to replace that due to an ICC order because they never abandoned the line, or they've been ordered not to. Yeah, they had this, and then at some point, I've been trying to figure out the exact history of what happened. It's not the easiest thing to find out. But at some point, the state stepped in and it got rebuilt. The second track went in, the new signaling went in, the CTC went in, all this stuff sort of went in the 70s, and I can track the time down, but I just don't know the history behind it of who contracted what or whatever. This is the what used to be the old CP 142 with the Searchlight Dwarfs. This was in service until just recently, where they were replaced due to an ongoing terminal resignaling project, which involved completely reconfiguring the Albany station with 4 tracks. Now this was construct. Now we're going into the what used to be the main. It used to be track 1, track 2, and main. Now there's track 1, track 2, track 3, and track 4, I think. And there's their Post Road branch, where the only 2 trains it sees a day are the Lakeshore Limited Boston sections. And it's jointed rail, but because it gets so little traffic, that jointed rail doesn't get beat up. So you can get the 80 mile, you get that old school, highly maintained jointed rail, feeling, which is neat. But it's still sort of weird that the only things that track has is the 2 the shuttles. I'm sure there's got to be something else that uses it occasionally. Some sort of CSX freight move. And that connects up at CP 186, 187 on the Boston line. But even when they built the state New York State Senate President Joe Bruno Albany Rensselaer Rail Station, there's a mouthful. They didn't alter the interlocking at all. They just built the station where the old one was, and then demolished the old station. They built it sort of a little. They built it over part of it, so that's why the platforms are always kind of a little short. But they did not really want to have to try to alter the interlocking just to save money. I mean, they didn't need to at the time, but that led to this chronic congestion because you only had 3 station tracks. One of them had to be used by the Lakeshore, and then when trains were a little off thing, you were constantly having people waiting to get into the Albany station. It was very congested, especially when you had a through train, and they had to do power changes here too. So your trains were stuck doing power changes. You'd have people coming up that were late, and then there was just a lot of stuff holding. And the new track that they have has really improved things a lot. Here we have our guy getting fueled, number 709 there. So to this day, some trains like the Lakeshore will get the power changed. Lakeshore down to Chicago, down to New York, just goes that one little P32. and then I'll have two P42s put on. Other trains, like sometimes the Adirondack or the Niagara Falls Empire trains, will just go straight through with the single P32. Others will get a power change. I'm pretty sure they don't take the P32s to Canada for the Maple Leaf. I'm sure they have some sort of rhyme and reason about it. But it's not like anything going past it gets a power change or everything. It's very not entirely predictable. Here he is getting fueled to make the trip out to Niagara Falls. Now, Albany is actually one of Amtrak's major diesel servicing facilities, especially for stuff in the Northeast, because and that means inland shuttles up to Springfield, or possibly anything that they have going out of Philly too, because Wilmington is for electrics. I think Bear is mainly for single level coaches. There might be some diesel stuff there. So these are 702 and 707. But I know that the Albany shops, in addition to maintaining the DM fleet, they do some rebuilding work there. When you went through it this time, in this era, you would often see the RTG or RTL, whatever, 3 turboliners. They briefly went into service. Then there was a kerfluffle, and then Amtrak told the state of New York to pound sand. Let's see what's going on in our thing here. We still got some people watching. Thanks for watching. I'm moving on in a pretty lively clip today. So, as we try to get out to Syracuse. Here we are. We're already going to be at Syracuse. Let's hope I can... This is going to be set number 3. So I'm mainly just doing a little restoration on these photos. See, there's the diesel shop right there. But despite being a major Amtrak facility, up until just a few years ago, it was under the control of the CSX, both the CSX dispatcher, although that dispatcher was seated over in Selkirk. See, there's a P42. And there we see the Livingston Avenue Bridge, which in the Conrail era was abbreviated to LAB, or LAB. This was the old New York Central freight bridge over the Hudson. The old freight bridge, not the Alfred E.H. Smith bridge that went to Selkirk Yard. You had a 2-track freight bridge and a 2-track passenger bridge. This was the freight bridge. And the passenger bridge went to the station in downtown Albany, but again in the 1970s, that was valuable real estate and dead weight on the, for the New York Central. So, they closed that, sold the station. I think it's a bank now, and then they just routed everything through Rensselaer. And now the passenger trains get to use the freight alignment. Here we have a relay hut for LAB, but in all honesty, this does the bridge tender's cabin is the tower, and I'm assuming it had one of those Conrail white metal NX machines that you saw at like Hick, and you saw at Scodio, and you saw at a bunch of other their late model towers. I think Quaker had one too. So while it was an active tower until just recently, and it had an operator, it was not working any sort of interesting interlocking machine. And I got this nice picture of the relay hut with the Conrail signs on it. Again, didn't take much of anything there because again I was limited to side shots. But here we have what I think is I don't know how New York Central is doing. I mean, I know it used telegraph codes, but this one just had a big old 30 on the side, so I just sort of call it Tower 30 in Utica. One of the very few surviving New York Central interlocking towers in the state of New York, in the Conrail region. And for those of you who don't know, the reason that there's so little surviving infrastructure on the in the New York Central zone, while in the PRR zone there's a bit more, is because New York State had unbelievably high property tax. Probably, I think they fixed it a little bit, but the property taxes were levied on the railroads were it's based on the value of the property, of all the stuff that's on it. Buildings, rails, extra tracks. So, if Conrail did not need it in the state of New York, Conrail knocked it down because it saved on their tax bill. And they have gotten. I know that there was that they changed it to some degree, but the damage had already been done, and almost all the old New York Central towers were just unceremoniously demolished. Here, a nice CSX ended train there with a Canadian Pacific boxcar. So this is a CP291. I think it's been resignaled, but it was it resisted pretty long because of its newness. The Syracuse area underwent some resignaling not too long ago. It was one of the last segments of the Chicago line in New York to be so changed. You also see this was, I guess, let's see what I called this. Ugh. I'm just going my old crappy names. They're getting a little bit better, so. I'd been through Syracuse previously on another train. It's a bit of a smoke stop, I think. So I had had opportunities to take some pictures here, but not many. .291 is the milepost from Grand Central, topping out at about 435 in Buffalo. Then resetting, just like the PRR did, to then count all the way back up till it got to 500 something in Washington. I mean, not Washington, Chicago. Oh, so here we got some nice stuff here in a Furex leasing GP40 in the lead. And then a Conrail blue painted, that's another SD40, 8800. CSX always used a lot of light power on the auto racks. I assume either the auto racks are empties, or they just, cars don't weigh a lot. Alright, I'm just going to swap this around. I didn't blew this photo out, but I'm not going to do too much to try to fix it. Gonna cut right on that line there where the person is. Don't want to cut the person in half. You don't want to have dangling feet in your photos. It only presents the viewers with a puzzle of what's going on. We have CSX 7308, which I'm assuming is a C40-8W. Now, I think at some point, yeah. So just a few photos ago, where you went from having that end, where you saw that cantilever shot to this one, I had attended my little job fair, had a good time, gotten some free food, and 2 days later, I can't even remember where I stayed for that. They had to have put us in some sort of cheap college dorm room, but I can't remember it for the life of me. Huh, that's strange. I guess it was that unremarkable. It was a nice time, but I didn't really get to, I didn't get to do a lot of fanning. I didn't have a car or anything with me. Gonna relabel that one to capture the cantilever and the approach indication up there. So as you can see, I guess I took the I guess I would have had to have taken the lakeshore back. Yeah, I guess I would have had to, because you got two P-42s there. Yeah, I forgot. I remember that trying to convince the people to let me take the train was a bit of a lift, or at least scheduling it once I could. But I was able to do the lake. I took an Empire out and a Lakeshore back. Oh, I remember this trip. Yeah, it was the middle of summer, and we were beset by heat restrictions because CSX can't maintain its tracks, so it slaps these really gnarly heat restrictions on. I think it was slowing us down to 60, and that just, oh man, that was not fun. This is, I think, an AC 4400. Back then, they were low. They were labeled low down in the, pretty low in the order. And those have since been replaced by some ES40, some sort of ES44. I'm pretty sure. They've done some renumbering. Let's go find out. One more in this patch, and then we just gotta go. Yep, this is when they put their little lightning bolt for the AC on the stuff. I'm not sure. Is that gonna crops a little bit, but not a ton. Worth it to get rid of that terrible tilt. Now I'm confused. If that train, if the Lakeshore had arrived Why was I still there? Probably check the dates on the photos. I'm now surmising that I was waiting for a ride. That's right. I was stuck at the station waiting for someone to pick me up because I was that guy that didn't take a plane. They had to like dispatch, or the guy who was doing pickups from the airport had to like circle back and get me from the station. Let's see here. Let's see if there's any sort of timestamps on them. 2 p.m. July 26th. Yeah, these are all the timestamps aren't on them. Yeah, so I think if I was waiting at the station, I think the Lakeshore just showed up. Yep, one more set, and that's it for this day's set. Let's see if there's anything going on in the thing here. I got some more people. Oh man, here we are on the return trip. So at some point, I at least get back on a return train. That's got to be it, and I'm thinking that this 141 is me back at the Amtrak station. So everything until you saw the CSX 141 is when I arrived and was then waiting to get picked up, and this is after I'd been dropped off. And again, they put me in the van with people to the airport, and we all went out to the airport, and then I got dropped off at the train station. And I got to hang out there until the train arrived. This is all before train tracking. So it showed up when it showed up. Maybe you got some information about it, maybe not. I got a pretty good show there, at least, number of good freights going through. Here's my train. One of the long-distance Empire Service guys with number 715 on the front. I can move this over a bit. There it goes. That's a better cropping. Kind of, I don't put the location before the number, except in a few locations, and that's just due to his history. So I'm not going to redo it here. Alright, what's next? Oh, this is definitely in the Syracuse terminal area. Number 2775. Yay, red tinted windows. That's always fun. Maybe I could do something about that. Get rid of some of that red. Oops. This is a GP38, of course. So, not much to say about this, but we are on the way back. So, yeah, here we have Adirondack Scenic, number 1508. There's a couple of railroads that run into the Adirondacks. This the old Saratoga and North Creek, which is temporarily defunct due to Iowa Pacific's having a meltdown. That comes in a whole bunch of miles from the east, and then the Adirondack Scenic. The Adirondack Scenic is the one that will eventually get you to Lake Placid, and that comes in from the west, out of Utica. And they, at least this point, we're using a New York Central painted FL9. Pretty sure. Well, let's check what that is. 1508. Hey, got the reporting marks. Oh, here we go with Tower 30 again. A little bit better, closer photo. Alright, let's see. Hopefully that's pulled up. What do we have for... oh, it's an F7. Okay, it's not an FL9. I thought they had FL9s, but I guess they don't. Let's see what's... last time this was spotted. I was running around in 2013. Anyway, let's continue. Just here we have a picture of the, I think this is the famous CP215 at Little Falls, where there was at least one guy who was always posted a ton of railpictures.net photos from like this rock outcropping. Again, all this stuff got resignaled. I never was able to get a survey on it just due to the, not having the ability to get up there and the sort of wishy-washy placement of the, getting rear views. You really stood a huge chance if you ever took a trip out there that you just wouldn't get the chance to take anything out the back. There's nothing you could do about it. I mean, way more so than other lines. I took a Canadian trip, so I had some experience on the water level route to Canada and a couple of Chicagos. I don't know what this is. I think it's a lock house or a lock structure, but it might be a railroad thing. So I'll try to see what I called this photo. But yeah, that's why I was never too hot to get out there. I really sort of wanted to, and I regret not doing it, but it was just too tough. All right, let's see. Hopefully I called that something. Did I call that a tower? Oh, I hope not. See, it looks like a very New York Central structure. I just don't know which thing that is. Well, let's see if we can do a little investigation here. Well, we know it is somewhere past CP215, CP188. There could be a lot of locations. Just not sure what that power plant is, or even if it's still there. I don't want to waste People watch me doing this. But this is what you got to do when you don't know what something is. You got to go to the overhead. I think this is Amsterdam. So there's 175. So is there any clues we can get from the photo? Not this one. I have no idea. So I want to use this power plant to try to clue me in on where this guy is. Okay, what's the next photo after that? I think this is CP175 at Hoffman's, or 169. See, there's CP1. There it is. Look. Boom. Found it. Right there. It's not tagged as anything, so maybe a Google map. Cranesville Block Company. Huh. I guess they make concrete blocks. Wow. You know, I guess people need concrete blocks. Oh, your corporate timeline. Amsterdam steam plant. There we go. See? That's how you do the research. You know, you find out what it is, you Google it, and then it was a Niagara Mohawk, I guess a central steam plant for the city of Amsterdam. Which was interesting that it would have had one like that. How far outside of the city is it? Wow. Oh yeah, there's where they're getting their concrete from. I wonder if they have a kiln. Well, that solves your little mystery. So I'm going to tag this guy. And what is this? So I was going to guess on that one. All right, boom, moving forward. This is, I know, is the CP, the gantry at CP169. Yeah, see, there's a train waiting for us to shift over there, and there's the freeway. Which route is that? I have a couple pictures at CP169, but never was really able to see. It's right there. Or it used to be right there. I just didn't have. I couldn't convince my friend to stop the car and let me go do the stuff with it. Yeah, there's the old CP169. I grabbed these from a passing vehicle. Was not able to convince my friend to after we'd already had a couple railfan stops that day. Could not force him to do more. And then before I knew it, it was re-signaled. So when it's really red like that, I'm going to hit it with a little color balance. There we go. Boom, look at that. Got that red right out of there. You I like for little adjustments. I really like using uh, the tool, just the color adjust. But for sometimes when something's just really red, a white balance. I mean, a re-white balance is also is definitely what you need. Almost done. And yeah, there you have your CSX freight waiting for us to uh, get off the tracks. So for those of you who don't know, Amtrak, well, now and then, still controlled the line from CP 124 on the Hudson line, CP 125 on the Hudson line to CP 169 on the Chicago line, and it had been upgraded to the 100 mile an hour. I'll try a color adjust again on this one. It had been upgraded to 100 miles an hour by the state of New York on both legs. So you have both 110 south of Albany and 110 west of Albany to a degree. And that's also been recently aided by the double tracking project out there, although it hasn't double tracked. It's only been double tracked to Schenectady. Probably not. There's probably no real need to double track it out to 169. But not sure what this guy was. Probably a C40-8W. That's what everything was back then. Oh, two more. Oh, here we are at CP 145. This is right next to LAB, so we're just sort of rounding the corner right before we get back to Albany. I don't need that hole. Maybe I do. Maybe it is interesting. Spread that out a little bit. I did get photos at CP 145 before it got resignaled, so that's a plus. Not all of CP 145. I forget which signal that is. I think it had some stuff written on it, but I don't have the things available on this computer. Maybe I do. I hate looking for that, but yeah, I don't know how to name this one. Well, I can go to my Google Photos and there they are. Yeah, so I use the Amtrak Hudson. I started this whole Amtrak Hudson. Normally for Conrail, I'll just do CP, but starting with this very photo set in 2015, I sort of accidentally did this non-standard naming system. Let me get back in there. I did get some decent photos of CP1. Here they are. Here are the CP145s. I just want to know what I called that signal. This is the signal. Just westbound siding dwarf, I guess. See, this one I forgot to put the stuff in there, so Well, that's just me getting tripped up by a hard to name photo. This one's easy. Hey, look, Express Track reefers. Amtrak's baggage handling service back when they were trying to make fun. People weren't riding the trains back then. It was nice if you did ride them, because they're all empty. You never had issues with sellouts or this or that or the other thing. You just roll on. I mean, the worst part is the train was so empty that you had that when the on long distance where the coach attendants would bitch at you to go sit somewhere, to sit in your assigned seat. You'd be like, why? The train's empty. And they always went out half empty. They weren't completely empty. They were about half full. You were guaranteed a two-seater to yourself if you wanted it. There was never any problems with that. But the downside is no one rode the trains. And it was kind of, it's not really unsustainable that way. What is that? 74066. 74066. But in 2005 was one of the years that was definitely true, because when I went, I haven't done the photos yet, but when I do the photos for my St. Louis trip on the Eagle, it was half full. A lot of the trains, it was half full. I'm sure that a lot of it might be rose-colored glasses, and I'm not remembering the ones that weren't, that were. So I'm sure that not everything was empty, but a lot of the stuff was not a lot of people. So next week or tomorrow, I'm going to, Thanksgiving Day, I'm still doing this. Got another 44 photos to do on this set. I'm looking for, actually I was looking for what a building was. So I was hitting the Wikimapia for that one, and then when Wikimapia didn't have a tag, I went to Google and Googled the company. I would love track plans in New York Central. I just would have to find them. I have a lot of the employee timetables, but I don't have historic track plans over time. Like this is what it was this year. This is what it was this year. For the PRR, I have a better feeling because I have books with photos, and when it's best to see when you see the photos. This was 4-track now. This is not 4-track. But anyway, I will be back tomorrow. You guys have a happy Thanksgiving, and stay safe. All right, I will see you there.